Hello and welcome to this course about HTML. So in this video we're going to look at the basics of HTML. So the purpose is you don't really need to know anything about HTML from the beginning in order to understand this course, but we are going to try to develop some of the skills that you will need to have in order to continue with HTML. So here's the structure of this video. The first thing we're going to look at is the history of HTML. We're also going to look at the structure of HTML, some examples, for instance creating an HTML file, that's one of the examples, and also we're going to go through some of the useful tags you'll need to know in order to start with HTML. Now let's go through the history. So you might already know that HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it basically is browser instructions. So if you go on to like google.com and view the source, you'll see that there is quite a big difference between what you see in the view source code and what you see in the actual browser. And the code you see in the view source code section is actually HTML, or at least the big part of it is HTML. Of course there is also JavaScript and CSS and other stuff like that, but mainly it's HTML. And you might already know that the main purpose of HTML was originally to be able to link documents together, specifically research documents, and so that if you have a reference on your page, then you could simply put a link there and that would reference another document, and it would be much easier to find it, especially if it was online. This comes to the concept internet. So, and as you might know, there has been quite a big difference between, or there is a quite big difference between internet now and internet several decades ago, because the main purpose was to connect computers. However, it was also for defense purposes. So it wasn't really the intention wasn't to connect all of the pieces in the world. But now, but the main idea has remained, and that is to be able to share files across different machines. However, now there is a much bigger amount of computers that are connected to this system. And if we'll now look at www, so World Wide Web, and that basically what connects documents together. And HTML is one of the examples. So HTML is connected to this. It's one of the things that basically makes everything work. The second thing is URL or URI. You might be familiar with URL, and that stands for Universal Resource Locator. But URI stands for Universal Resource Identifier. But basically they mean the same thing. And what it is it's basically the web address. And you can see I have an example here of a web address that you might see online. HTTP is another technology which is, if you decipher these letters, you'll find out that it is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and it is a language for exchanging documents. But you can. This is just like a rough. I want you to have some rough idea of what it actually is built of. But of course, it's much more complicated, especially right now, with the way it works. But this is quite a simplified model. Now let's take a look at HTML. So we know HTML is basically the purpose is to share documents, and these documents should also be able to contain text, images as well. So all those kind of stuff that we can see online. Some of the examples of browsers. So we defined in the previous slide, we defined what a browser. We didn't really define it, but the browser is an application that can really take this HTML code and be able to interpret it and show some result. Some examples are Google Chrome, Microsoft Internet Explorer, Apple Safari, Mozilla Firefox, and Opera. But these are just the most commonly used. Of course, there are a wide range of modifications and browsers that can interpret HTML. Partially of the definition you can see HTML, it's a markup language. So it's for the as we mentioned in the last slide, HTML is basically setting, it describes how the page should look like. HTML is interpreted by a browser, and as I said before, you can see this is what you can see in the source code tab when you right click on the web page. You can see it starts with HTML body, and then we see some strange things. And when we compile this, when we actually look at the page, it's much simpler. So you can see the green box is the code, and on the right hand side I have the actual page that we are going to see. There are quite important things we have to notice, and quite important element of HTML is tags. So a tag is the key element in a website, and basically the first thing it does is it defines a page and how it should be displayed, and all those things are defined by the W3C. It's a worldwide. Let's see. The definition is World Wide Web Consortium, and they basically define how tags and what kind of tags there should be, and they come up with the standards for HTML. And there are other standards though, because we have HTML, but we also have XHTML, and that stands for extensible hypertext markup language. And what I can say about it is that it's much stricter than HTML when it comes to the way when it comes to the tags, because you could call it sometimes that it's the next generation HTML. That's what it is. So if we have a simple document here, we have HTML head, body, and we have some text there. If we look at what it consists of, so this is our page, this is the head, this is the body, and we can see a different, or not a difference, but we can see a relation between the head and the body. So we have our head that contains information, or it contains knowledge, and then we have the body, that's actually what we see. So like clothes and so on, but the head is the one with the information. And it's kind of similar to HTML, because we have a head and we put a lot of important stuff there, and in body we actually put what we want the user to see. But we will come to this later. What important is to know is that when you look at a page, so I have a page here. Well, if we start to analyze it, we can see it. Doc type, it basically stands for the standards. You want to define what is your document, what kind of standards is your document going to follow. That's important because there are different doc types depending on what, and actually you can create your own doc type, I think. You can also see HTML, and that is simply it's the root element. It tells the browser. So here we have HTML. Then you have the head, and that's metadata. So it contains information about who's created the page, the title of the page, and so on. The body is the actual page. So the browser basically takes that interprets it, and displays it to the user. So in here's how. Here we're going to have an example. So one thing you have to notice is HTML code might be edited in any text editor, and even Notepad, of course. But there are, of course, plenty of editors online which you can find. For instance, Notepad++, and there are a lot of these. For instance, Adobe Dreamviewer, I think it has a quite good editor, and there are a lot of these. You can use Visual Studio to edit, and it's also quite a good editor. So it depends on what you prefer. But in this tutorial, we're going to look at online examples. So there is going to be a link, and where we actually have an online HTML compiler, so that we don't need to really create a new file each time we create go through a specific tag. So here you can see editor.casevar.net/id2. If you go to that link, you'll see the example I'm going to talk about in a minute. So here's the video. So you can see what we have to do in order to create an HTML file. We're going to create a new text document. We type that text document, so we type like my page. Then we double click, we paste the source code there, and we press archive or file, save. And now save as. You have to put a save as, and the file type should be all files. And in the file name you should type mypage.html. Now you'll get a new document on your screen. And now if you double click, you'll see hello world. And that's congratulations, this is your first HTML document. So now I would like to talk about head. So head is kind of not something that the user will be able to see, but it's rather more for search engines and basically for search engines. It really is a big part that's used by search engines, except the title tag. So now let's take a look at what the title tag is. So title tag is what you're going to see in the browser. In the top where you have your tab on, you'll see a specific text. Also, when you search for your page online, the title, everything you put in the title, is usually going to appear in a search engine on the results page. Meta tag is basically metadata, for instance keywords. So it allows you to specify information like the author of the page. You can provide the keywords for the search engine. Again, everything refers to the search engine. And for instance, when you created the page, when you last modified the page, those kind of stuff, they're not going to appear. Then you have the script tag, and the script allows you to provide a script such as JavaScript or Visual Basic script for a more interactive page. Style is as you probably are familiar with, is CSS. So that's what you can write there, CSS code, and that you put into style. And what it stands for is cascading style sheet, and it will apply to the entire document. So you can define different classes. For instance, I want to have all headings on the page blue, then I define as in my style sheet that all the headings should be blue, or these kind of stuff. So this kind of makes it more based on patterns. So it's much easier. You don't need to repeat yourself. Link is it's when you want to connect your document to another document. So mostly it's another page. However, it's also possible to include base tag, and that's the last thing we're going to look at. And the base tag is a tag that allows you to specify where the page is, where the page should have its base. And that doesn't probably really say anything, but what base means is if I have a page and I specify base and then I specify the URL there, that is going to tell the browser that anytime in the body that I refer to, for instance, hello.jpg, it's an image, all the time it's going to think that it's in the base directory, and then you have specified a base directory. If you don't specify a base directory, the browser is going to search for hello.jpg in the same folder as the file. But if you specify a base tag, then it's going to search from that URL or from that location. So you can, for instance, have a folder called resources, and in that folder you're going to put the media and other content, and when you refer from the body to the base tag to the to that file, it's going to add resources, so you don't really need to repeat yourself. Once again, as you can see, there are a lot of things that are made to be able to minimize the repetition of the in the page. So here's another example of how you can work with these things we've talked about. So here's a simple page, HTML, and I have a body. So now I'm adding a head, and the head, as I said, it's going to contain information for the browser, search engines only. Mostly it's for search engines. So you can see we use a title tag. That's actually one of the tags that you are going to see in the browser. So when you go to so we can see if we save this file now, if we double click, you can see in the tab is going to be called My Homepage, and that's exactly what we wrote in the title. So now let's extend the head a bit and add some meta tags, like so this one is going to be, so you can see the pattern of a meta tag. Meta is, and then you have the name is equal to author, and content is equal to any content you have there. So what it really is that you, in the meta, so if you want to define a meta value, you need to have a name for that value, and then the content of the value. So you have the name and the value. You can think about it in that way. So one of the examples is to use author. Another example is to use description. That's like a short summary of what your page is all about. I'd like to remind you that this isn't going to be displayed in the website. So the end user is not going to be able to see this code unless they open the View Source tab. So another meta example is to have the keywords. I think that's what I'm going to do here. So we have now author, description, and this is meta is equal to keywords. Also, this is for the web browser for the search engine like Google, Bing, and so on. As you can see, keywords are separated by a comma. So you can see that even if you update the page, you won't really see any difference between by adding these meta tags. And as I said, they don't really influence the page. Now we're going to define a new thing. We actually talked about it already, but a script tag. And a script tag is allows you to make the page more interactive. So you put some sort of script there, and now I'm going to add some JavaScript there. And you can see this is not a part of the course really, but you can notice that when you type window on load is equal to a function, you specify the function, and then alert is actually a message box. So hello, or no, hi there, that's what's going to be there. And if we save this and we update the page, we are going to get the message from the page. So every time you would update the page, you would get a message, or even when you go to that page, you will get a message. And of course, this can be changed. You can have the message after that the page is loaded. You can have it when the user tries to close the page, and you can put it everywhere. Now let's take a look at the style tag. And the style contains cascading style sheet. That's kind of standard CSS, another word for it. And it's defined as I do right now. So style type text CSS. Then you close the style tag, and body is equal to, so you have body. Body basically refers to the body tag, so it refers to the body tag. Color is equal to red. So now if we as you can see, when we update the page, the text of that everything that's inside with the body tag is going to change its color. So it can actually be anything, really. It can be a heading, it can be a paragraph, it can be anything, as long as it's inside the body tag. You can see that we can include CSS by explicitly typing style tag. However, what if we have the style sheet or the CSS file at another place? For instance, on another, if we have like a website and we have 5 websites, like the home, an about page, and news page, we might want to create a style sheet. So you can take a look. I think I had it there. So the style, so you can see I have my page, and then I have style, and they're in the same folder. So I don't really need to specify anything else unless I need to just type style.css. That's the only thing. And it's good. Now if we update, and now let's take a look at how it looks like. It says body color black, so it's going to change the color to black, background color. And now you can see that even that command in the external style sheet affected our page. And what's interesting about it is, of course, if you can have a lot of pages on your server or anywhere, and then you have one style sheet, and then by modifying that style sheet you modify all the pages, because all the pages will inherit that file. And now I'm using a base tag, so you can see base. I type the URL, it's a website there, and now I can't really, you can see that it can't really find the style sheet, because it thinks that it doesn't, that it is in on that server, but it's not. So it doesn't look through the current the folder, so where the file is, but it adds http.www etc. to the style sheet. So clisper.net/ and then it says adds style.css. So what we're going to look at now, this was a quite intensive walk through the head tag and what we really can do with it. But what I think you should focus on right now is the body tag. And let's look through some of the basic things you can have in the body tag. So you have a heading, and that is like a section. You can have different kinds of headings. You can have simple text, like inline text or a quote. You can have lists. So for instance, if you have some sort of information you would like to list, I mean, these are really related to when you create something, some sort of text in Word, you usually have some list, and that basically what it is, but you have to type some more in order to get that list. So it might be like a table of reference, or at least before, when it was introduced, it was used as a table of reference of a scientific document, I think. Links, they connect a document to another document. Tables are used to list information, but I've crossed out used as a layout, because you shouldn't actually use tables as layout. I see a lot of people use tables as their main layout of the page, and really you might ask the question, why shouldn't we use tables? And one thing is that we can use CSS much in a better and efficient way, because in CSS you can use like divs, spans, classes, etc. to do that. Another tag we can take a look at is image tag or objects, and they images, you can embed images and objects like Adobe Flash, Microsoft Silverlight for for instance, for advertisements. Like you see, when you see a banner on a page, usually it's made in Adobe Flash. And the images as well, they can be also used as banners. And by the way, the description here is not right. It talks about the base tag. So the image and the description is wrong. But the description of the base tag is that it sets a base to the page. So what we have been talking about here is HTML, and we said it's a language that is interpreted by a browser. And the most common tags are HTML, which tells the browser that this is an HTML page, the head tag, which is also used for search engines, and the body, that's the actual page. Now I would like to start with headings, and the headings are sometimes used by search engines as well. So we've talked about the head tag. It's quite used. It's used a lot by web browsers, search engines, but the heading is also included sometimes. Headings are useful when we want to split up into sections, some text into sections. And there are different kinds of headings you can use. You can use H1, which is the largest heading, and you can use H6, which is the smallest heading. And then you have this hierarchy starting from H1 to H6. And if I have this text or HTML code, H1 is equal to heading 1, H2 is equal to heading 2, and so on, I would get this. And you can see the decrease in ascending order. H3 is the smallest and H1 is the largest. So if we now put our code snippet, so if we put the code snippet in the previous slide into HTML document, this is how it's going to look like. So some time ago we talked about how to put it into how to create an HTML file on your computer, and then how you can create a really simple website. Here you see that now we've started to use more advanced things like HI, and this basically is going to generate a page which looks similar to this. So H1, that's the first, the top heading, and then we have H2 for table of contents and introduction. They are on the same level, H2, H2. They are both H2. Now we have to really clarify what we mean by tags. You've seen I've talked about head, body, HTML tag, and base tag, link, links, images, and so on. But now I think you're starting to figure out what it's actually is all about. The tag is an HTML element, and it consists of an opening tag, or sometimes referred to as starting tag. And it starts, as you can see, you have the tag name and you have these symbols, less than and greater than. And we have a closing tag, and the basic difference between these is that you put a slash. So a less than slash tag name and then greater than sign. And the tags are also HTML elements. And you can see here's an example of a paragraph. We can see it starts with a P, and then it ends with this slash and then P. Tags can also contain attributes, and attributes are used to, as it says here, insert some additional information so that the browser might probably display this in a different way, to make some tags different from each other. So if I have a style attribute, I can specify the color and anything that style or that I can do in CSS. And that example that you have above, so if you type this URL into your web browser, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see something like P style is equal to color is equal to blue. And what this is going to generate is this text. And you can see it's in blue. So as we know now, attributes are just providing the browser with additional information about a specific tag. In this case, we provided the browser with the fact that it should be blue. So we've now seen the pattern. The pattern is name is equal to value. We have the name and then the value. And I would like to now show you some of the very common attributes. Class is one of them, specifies what class it is, and this is kind of referred to CSS. So if you are familiar with CSS, you will understand what class is. But in CSS, you can have different classes. Like you can have one class which can be called like blue text and red text, and then when you specify in your tag, you specify in the attribute class that it should be equal to blue text. It's going to refer to that style sheet. And of course, you know the power of style sheets, that there can only be one style sheet at a particular place, and then it can be linked to a lot of documents. So once we modify that style sheet, all the documents that contain the class is equal to blue text are going to use that what it's defined in the style sheet. So all the definitions are going to be applied there. ID is also one of the things one of the tag attributes you can use to make the tag more unique, because ID you can specify, so ID1, ID2, ID3 can be anything, but so that when you use JavaScript and you want to refer to a specific tag, so not only tags in general, but you have a tag like a heading, and you want to refer to that heading and change the color of it, for instance, then you will need to know the ID of that tag in most cases. Style is also one of them. So we saw in the previous example, we saw how style was applied. So you just type CSS code and title. So a lot of these attributes you can have, and of course some of them are not cannot be used in every HTML element, but some of them can. Now let's take a look at links. So links we can now look at links as another example of attributes in tags. So links are defined with an A, and A stands for that it's a link. You can see it's a starting tag and closing tag. And important thing to remember about links is that you should start with HTTP. This means you should start with HTTP, because otherwise there might be something very weird going on. So if you type www.google.com and then you basically refer to it, or you have a link, then if you press on that link and it's on your server, it's going to try to find a folder called www.google.com. Every time you want to refer to the actual website google.com, you would need to use http://. This is an example of a link. It was also google.com link. You can see href, that's an attribute, and it stands for the URL of the page. We enter the URL, and then we enter the text that the user is going to see. So the user is just going to see google.inc. That's what the user is going to see. But the href is actually what's going to be where the user is going to be navigated when he or she presses this link. Now I'd like to continue with images, and there is a lot of information about images online. You can search and to go through different attributes, but I'm going to look at some of the common ones. But first we have to know how to define an image. An image is defined with the img tag, and it has a src attribute that provides the link to the image. So happyface.jpg would be placed in the CRS attribute. Alt attribute is optional, but it provides a description, and I think it's sometimes, at least in some browsers, when you have the mouse pointer above the picture, you'll see this text in alt tag. However, there are other attributes like height, width, and more. Now let's take a look at tables. And what I want to show you now is it's defined as a table tag. So, and tr is attribute. Tr attribute defines the row. TD attribute defines the cell in a row, and here's a simple page or a table. So you can see TR, and TD, and this is what it's going to generate. I think if you just look at the code here and try to experiment with this with a bit, you'll find out, and will get used to this style of making tables. But one thing I want to show you is that tables might have different borders depending on the browser you use. For instance, if you use Internet Explorer, you might see the borders will be in a different style than if you would use Google Chrome or Firefox or Netscape browsers. And the table heading can also be used, that it's th, and this is the code, and you can see the red text that I've selected there is the heading of the the header of the specific cell. So you can see, if we look at this, we can see the header 1, it's going to be centered, it's going to be bold, and it's quite good to use when you want to just have the header in the table, th tag, and it includes. But of course you can use a simple, you can follow the same strategy and use some CSS to modify, probably if you want to have it to the left or align it to the right, or and so on. I mean, but this is just to make you going with the tables. So like a quick start here. Now I'd like to thank you for watching this tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed this. And there are of course a lot of things you can read about that you can read about online. For instance, V3C schools. There is Mozilla has a really good reference for the HTML specifications and so on. And below this video I've also added a document. It's a reference booklet you can take a look at. It contains questions to some of the things we talked about today and some text. Of course, that booklet is a bit simplified than this course, because this course has been quite intense. It's 35 minutes, but I hope you can use the power of being able to pause the video and also by reading this additional content. And when you don't really understand anything, when you don't really understand a particular thing, then it's very important that you ask a question either down here, or there's also a link to a page where you can contact. But usually I think it's good if you type it somewhere on a forum, because it's much easier for everyone else to help you with the issue that you have in HTML. But otherwise, I would like to thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day.